Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're all having a great and wonderful day. Well, what we have here is the approval message of Trump of his the big beautiful bill being passed. This is a great thing. Now, obviously, we have a lot of things to criticize about the bill, or certain things we can criticize about the said bill of the huge amount of spending that it may incur, and how we have to trust the government. Which, again, last thing we should ever do is trust the government. But that means you guys get no taxes on tips, no taxes on overtime, and seniors get tax reduction and all that great stuff. So we're going to go over the bill a little bit here, and then we're going to go over a few things of what Thomas Massey has to say about it. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So we have House approves Trump's massive tax and immigration package. It says House Republicans approved President Donald Trump's sprawling tax and immigration agenda Thursday morning, sending to the Senate legislation that the GOP hopes will transform the federal government and the economy and power the White House's drive to deport immigrants and build up the military. So I don't see a problem with this here, where it says where deport immigrants and build up the military. But there's one thing I want you guys to see here. See how it says here to deport immigrants? This is where the Washington Post is lying and not being generous. Now they're saying the truth, but also lying. So what they're supposed to say here in this report is that they're supposed to say deport illegal immigrants. Trump is not going to deport legal immigrants, because when you say deport immigrants, it leads you to think that they're deporting legal immigrants when that's not what's happening. He's going to be deporting illegal immigrants here, and that is what and that's the big thing here. So this is another thing that Washington Post is doing that's lying. The military is great, so I don't see any bit of negatives there. It depends on what we're doing with the military, but again, I support building up our military against our adversaries, where people are becoming, even our own allies, becoming more hostile to us than ever. It says Trump's one big beautiful bill, as the measure is formally known, extends trillions of dollars in tax cuts from his first term, along with new campaign promises, including no taxes on tips and overtime wages and hundreds of billions of dollars in new spending. But the legislation, which passed 215 yes to 214 nay, with one person being asleep at the wheel after marathon talks, carries a hefty price tag. The latest projection from the Congressional Budget Office lawmakers' nonpartisan bookkeeper showed it will add $2.4 trillion over 10 years to the national debt, which already exceeds $36 trillion. To offset the cost, the measure would slash spending on social safety nets programs by more than $1 trillion over 10 years. Now, notice how they said social safety net programs. That's not true, and we're going to go over that later into the video, so please stay tuned for that, because I'm going to go over it. Even then, the mammoth legislation could also force nearly $500 billion in cuts to Medicare, which is not what's happening here, and over the next decade to keep the national deficit within legal limits, unless Congress later adjusts the limits. So again, that's what's going on here, and they're also saying as the legislation could strip Medicaid coverage from 8.7 million people and lead to 7.6 million more uninsured people over 10 years. Okay, so that's what the Washington Post has to say. They're all idiots. They're stupid. So again, no reason to trust them whatsoever. I'll be going over this, and I'll go back to it later. The House of Representatives erupts in cheers and applause as President Trump's one big beautiful bill officially passes. Now, this is what Nick Sorter has to say. Next, no tax on tips or overtime, $107 billion for deportations and the wall, tax relief for seniors, and making this 2017 tax cuts permanent. So this is really good. I'm not going to show this video here because there's no reason to say that that they're going to do this, right? 212 Democrats obviously said no, nay, and 215 Republicans said yeah. So you know, all that stuff. So it passed by one person. And we have this here that I love to stand here and tell the American people we can cut your taxes, increase the spending, and everything will be fine. But I can't, because I'm here to deliver the dose of reality about the ticking time bomb or debt bomb known as the big beautiful bill. This is from Thomas Massey. Now, he says some things that make sense, but again, here we're going to go over it.
Gentleman from Kentucky is recognized for 90 seconds.
Well, I'd love to stand here and tell the American people, we can cut your taxes and we can increase spending and everything's going to be just fine. But I can't do that because I'm here to deliver a dose of reality. This bill dramatically increases deficits in the near term, but promises our government will be fiscally responsible 5 years from now. Where have we heard that before? How do you bind a future Congress to the
Now, I can agree in this statement here that this is a problem, right? Because he's pretty much saying we have to trust it. We have to trust into the government to say that they're going to keep their word, and I can understand that, right? I am a very huge advocate of not trusting the government whatsoever, so I can see that here. But we have to see on how this government will play out within the next 40 years, because Trump is still going to be in office in 40 years, and if JD Vance gets in, we can see how the next 40 years, hopefully 8 years of JD Vance, where he's in office to see where that goes. So we all have to see on which who wins the presidency, and after Trump gets out of resigns or whatever, leaves the presidency, and how we see on where this current administration and how this goes. Because right now the stocks are really high, S&P 500, etc. It's all doing very well right now in the stocks.
These promises. This bill is a debt bomb ticking. Congress can do funny math, fantasy math, if it wants, but bond investors don't. And this week, they sent us a message. Moody's downgraded our credit rating, and the bond investors who buy our debt and finance our debt demanded higher interest rates on the 10-year note, the 20-year note, and the 30-year note. What does this mean? Very soon, the government will be paying $16,000 of interest alone per U.S. family. And what are we telling them? Instead of taking care of that problem, we're going to give you a $1,600 tax break. Under the taxing and spending levels in this bill, we're going to rack up, the authors say, $20 trillion of new debt over the next 10 years. I'm telling you, it's closer to $30 trillion of new debt in the next 10 years. Mr. Speaker, we're not rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic tonight. We're putting coal in the boiler and setting a course for the iceberg. If something is beautiful, you don't do it after midnight. I oppose this bill.
Gentleman's time has expired.
Okay, so yeah, he opposes the bill, which I can understand the immense amount of spending that's in the bill and what have you. But there's a lot of good things in this bill. It is something that I think the American people can actually eventually pay off at some point in time. When you again, Trump has cut a lot of spending, unnecessary spending, thanks to Doge and all that stuff like that. If we can keep this going, we can actually reduce the amount of a whole bunch of spending and unnecessary spending. Because the problem is that the unnecessary spending that we have, not the spending that we currently have right now. So again, we are going to go over this bill, right? The one big beautiful bill, right? So again, we're going to go over it very briefly, but it's only going to be for certain things, all right? So let's go with overtime, because that's the main course of this video. So what we have there is additional tax relief for American families and workers. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, enhanced deduction for seniors, and no tax on car loan interest. So that's what we have here in this big beautiful bill, is these four things. This is huge and amazing for Americans. All right. So that's one thing that's in this bill, and we should be all for it. Now he's pretty much saying that, like, it's going to cause a problem because we're not going to have any taxes from people. Well, why would you want to tax the Americans anyways? Because I always say, why would we want to tax Americans? Is it stupid? I think tax is theft. I don't think you should do any of that. So this is going to put a lot more money into people's hands, and we'll see on what happens here in the near future. So again, we have this here. And then we have the silencers. So this is another big thing. So it has this reduction of excise tax on firearm silencers, which, again, I'm going to show you why this is a problem, because reduction of excise tax on firearms is under current law that a silencer is defined as a firearm for some god-apparent reason, for purposes of the National Firearms Act, and is subject to a $200 transfer tax. So again, this is something that this provision eliminates the transfer tax on silencers. So again, this is something that that is a huge deal, right? So obviously, this is not. This is really good. So it's being more Second Amendment. So I don't see where this is a problem. And then we're going to finally do the senior thing here, because obviously people need to go to what's going on with the seniors. It says this provision provides a deduction for seniors age 65 or older of $4,000 per eligible filer with a modified adjusted gross income that does not exceed $75 for single filers, $150,000 for married filing jointly. The senior deduction is available to both itemizers and non-itemizers. The deduction is allowed for tax years 2025 through 2028. So yeah, they're pretty much saying is we're not going to tax your Social Security, Social Security. So I don't see where this is a problem here. So these things are good. Now, the one thing that I want to show you guys, which I try to get to this as quickly as possible. So we're going to do the whole medical situation, right? So let's do the medical or the Medicaid credit and go down here. I had it better than my last time, but so again, this is here the treatment of health reimbursement arrangements integrated with individual market coverage. So again, this is really good. And it says here as well, participants in choice arrangement eligible for purchase of exchange insurance under cafeteria plan. And we have this here, employer credit for choice arrangement. Individuals entitled to Part A of Medicare by reason of age allowed to contribute to health saving accounts, treatment direct primary care service arrangements, allowance of bronze and catastrophic plans in connection with health savings accounts. Under current law, some bronze and all catastrophic health insurance plans have maximized out-of-pocket costs that exceed IRS-defined limits of HCPs, disqualifying HA's accountability. This provision allows all bronze and catastrophic health insurance plans on the exchange to be eligible plans for the purpose of making HSA contributions. So again here, then certain amounts of paid physical activity, fitness, and exercise treated as amounts paid for medical care. Sports and fitness expenses such as fitness facility membership fees are not treated as HSA qualified medical expenses. The provision allows individuals to use their HSA for physical fitness memberships and instructional medical activity up to $500 per year for an individual and $1,000 per year for a family, up to 1/12 of such expenses allowed per month. Allow both spouses to make catch-up contributions to the same health savings account, etc. So if anything, guys, like I said before, with the whole Medicaid thing, with what these guys are saying here is this, right? They're saying that this is going to Medicare over the next decade to keep it natural deficit limits. They're going to do cuts. Well, they're obviously not doing cuts, because if they were doing cuts, then they would be doing it. So if we say you need to do this here for Medicaid with cuts, you're not going to find it. So again, there is no cuts here. It's just removing taxpayer benefits for illegal immigrants, which I think everybody approves of. So again, this is what the media says. This is why the Washington Post is garbage. They lie to you, and they're saying they're cutting Medicaid when that's not happening. If anything, it seems to be more money for Medicaid than it seems to be cutting it. So these people are stupid. All right, guys, that's it for the video. I hope you guys enjoy your no tips and no overtime. I think it's going to be wonderful. And deduction on your seniors. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. And as always, my friends, catch you later.